Okay, testing, testing, testing. Okay. Hello guys, welcome back. My microphone close enough. Hold on. I'm all kitty wampus, and I'm not crying from Loki. But I saw a video that I'll call Loki's perfect timing. I don't think Loki had anything to do with the unfortunate events that led to the video, but was definitely like a little nudge, you know. I watched a channel from Russia with the foxes, and Rick the Fox has been gone for a year. And I remember when he died, and that was really upsetting because he was such a tiny fox. Not like a child, but he was such a gentle, caring soul. He was so tender with his lady, and he loved his mommy. Mommy, best mommy. He absolutely adored everyone, though. He was like the best of foxes. And, she put the video up, and since she did as a premiere, she couldn't put any translations, but we really didn't need translations because you could see she loved him, and I'm still crying because it was really emotional because he was such a loving fox, and it's been such a loss for everyone that knew him, especially for her, but for anyone that watched the videos and, got to love and adore him because he was so tender and tiny. I will give you the tribute video, be ready to cry. And Loki was kind of putting his tiny paw in there. Not to make it all about him, but to say, see? Every so often I think it's useful to do a restart on our faith. I think we owe it to our gods not to just do whatever. That can have a time and a place, but sometimes we have to me at least, I have to go back to the lore, look at exactly what the lore said, realize that no two people can agree on a translation of our lore, and then go from there. And I'd been looking at Frostiron, and they had those, if you're Lokean, you know all about this stuff. They had like the necklace that was supposed to be for Loki. And the rationalist in my head that loves to ruin everything came up behind me and said, well, has red eyes. I bet that's supposed to be Thor. And for some reason, Loki is always shown as having this, like, Dick Dastardly style mustache, and I don't know why. I have no idea why. Okay, show off. And he's back here like, look at me. We can't prove it's Loki. It's not like they engraved Loki on it, so we would know in future generations. And we have the Bellows Guard that again, we think it's Loki, but we don't know. And we have a coin, and we have this and that. And we only have little tiny fragments. And that's one of the hard things about following Loki, is that we only have these little tiny fragments. And we don't know if they were meant in a worshipful sense or how they were meant. We assume they were, but we can only make educated guesses about the past. I heard, yeah, they were! Anyhow. I had been going back to the lore because other than one incident where he made a wall of fire, we don't have a fire, reference. And yeah, we can extrapolate, and we've talked about on this channel that he could be a god of blacksmithing, god of death, and god of fire. But every so often when I'm going back and looking at the lore, I want to make sure I'm not just going off on a whimsical extremist path and la da 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 da, and Loki never actually did any of this. And of course Loki got hurt. At the end of the day, I don't think he really cares if you believe he's a god of blacksmithing, or a god of fire, or air, or if he's even a god if you think he's a Jotun. Remember, God and Jotun is not God and giants, it's two different tribes of the same kind of people. They're not different species, or they couldn't intermarry. It's two different warring families. They all got along once upon a time, apparently, and then they decided to fight. Because reasons. But another good thing to remember is that our lore was written in a very different time. It was written in a time of warring clans. So, of course, the idea of warring clans would have made divine sense to them. It's written in a time when leaders had to do very terrible things to lead their people. So, we have to look at that and say, okay, it's fine enough to know about our lore, but since we can't even agree on how to translate some of these words, and we can't, we have to take it with a huge grain of salt and see how the gods are acting now. And here's another thing we have to remember. All the stuff we're writing down now, all the UPGs and that, we can agree, we can disagree, but 1,000 years from now, humans will have changed so much that if they find it, they'll be gone. These people were nuts. You weren't ever like us, were you? And the gods will be like, no, that's just the best they could do. That's the best humans can ever do. So we're just doing the best we can do. Hopefully, if humans keep progressing, 1,000 years from now, they'll think we're all godless barbarians, and how could we see the gods in such a limited way? Humans change. Or it could go the other way. You know what a pessimist I am, and they'll think, how could they think the gods were ever nice? The gods are terrible, and life is suffering. I hear Becker, yeah, give him hope for the future. You're such a good leader. Yeah. So, Loki interfered with the game. You saw that. And he'd been hurt. And we had a discussion last night. I said, you know you're my god, and you're my lord. And actually, Odin was the one to say, hey, you give us all stuff that there's really no underpinnings or truth to. These little tiny scraps he has, let him keep, because he only has little tiny scraps, and a lot of the little tiny scraps Loki has, I know very well somebody raided Voodoo or Santeria for him, because I worked that before. And at the time, as I was transitioning, Papa Legba had been like, give him these little tiny scraps. He has nothing. He doesn't have anything left but his pride. Give him these little tiny scraps. If he wants fire, give him fire. If he wants computers, give him computers. If he wants crossroads and keys and all these other, associations, let him have them. So we kind of have to do that. Loki's one of those gods that I can't go get a Lokean Bible somewhere. I got get a My Little Pony anthology, but I can't go get the My Little Pony anthology and show it to you and say, here in passage this, passage that, it says this. I can only say, we found this scrap of stuff somewhere and it may or may not be Loki, but there you go. Or what an inspiring speech. But that's okay, and we should realize that we don't have to be fanatically loyal to Loki. We can reason. We can let him have stuff, yeah. We can say, okay, yeah, that's for you, Loki. Good for you. They made stuff for you. And he'll feel pretty good about himself. But we're also called to have reason. And to apply reason to stuff. And to say, well, we really don't have much for the other gods either. We have accounts of them having, statues and stuff. And we have little things we found. But we don't know everything. We can't even agree on what any of the symbols mean because it's just lost to us. And, Loki may have had worship, but he may have had more like charms. I heard somebody back here, Loki is the god of last resort. So that might have been it. If he was the god of last resort, you didn't normally call on him. There would have probably been people that worked with him normally, like we do, but he probably would have been the god of last resort in a lot of cases because Loki will give you a solution, but you're not always going to be happy with the solution. There may be a lot of tears involved on your part. I'm not saying he's a terrible god. He's a very good god, but sometimes if you want something, he'll just get it the quickest, dirtiest way possible, and you may not be happy with the result. It's something about manifest those damn Big Macs and manifest them. He's getting his revenge. He deserves it, though. I didn't do it to hurt him. I didn't do it to be disloyal. I didn't do it to lose faith in him. He did point out he loses a lot of people because, they do this every so often. They're resetting stuff and they're going back and they're looking at the lore and they're watching videos and reading articles and reading books, and poor little Loki gets kicked outside, and Loki loses a lot of people. So do they all. The Norse gods, may the gods forgive me. The Norse gods attract people through whatever means possible, whether it's movies or books, like American Gods, I'm sure brought a lot of people in. And once we find out they're not so shiny and they're not so new, and we read certain interpretations of, say, the Havamal or something, then we're terrified of our gods, or we're disgusted with our gods, because they're shown to be as people were at the time these stories were written down. At the time the stories were written down, as much as we don't like it, slavery was common. As much as we don't like it, rape was common. And especially with, you know, how it's always been. Rich people could just go take something from weak people, or, you know, raiders could just take something from people that never did anything to anyone. That's life. So we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at our stories and think of what we don't want to bring forward. We don't want to bring forward Odin the rapist, or the reason I have issues with that one fellow with the doctorate, that he says Thor would be a rapist also, and people extrapolate from that all the male gods were rapists. I think you can translate the same line a million different ways, and I always took the translation to be, even though I don't speak the original language, that Odin was having fun with the women, and he was teasing Thor that he should have been there because they could have both enjoyed the same women. I'm sorry, these are dudes talking to dudes. And Thor was like, yeah, I would have done that. Yeah, I'm such a stud. You know how guys are. They're obnoxious and disgusting when they talk to each other. Sometimes. Some men. Don't hate me. Uh, so it's been a lot to get through. And that's why I think there's a danger. We should reset, but we should also remember there's a danger of looking at that and looking at somebody translating it to Odin rapist, Thor rapist, every god rapist. That would be the way we treat them, because no woman will want to serve that. No woman will ever want to serve that. And no one will want to serve a god that keeps slaves. But we have to remember times change, humans change. And a lot of the stories about the gods were written to suit human purposes. We have to remember that unless we can prove Odin came down, or Thor came down, or Loki came down and wrote these stories, the humans wrote all the stories. So of course the gods engage in the same behavior. I got some kind of mild approval back here. So I wanted to share that with you guys. We're doing fine. He's a lot to handle sometimes when you're trying to go through stuff and reason stuff and put stuff together for a solid foundation. Gods know Loki likes to help and come over and help. So we're fine. I've never believed in blind faith, because I think it could come up and bite you in the rear end, but, you know, if that's what Loki asks for from time to time, that's fine too. So, if you like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.